why do we find it difficult to be committed? Why do we find it difficult to be committed? But what we want to say is that we want to be dedicated to Jesus till we die. We want to be dedicated to him till we die. And if we can do this, it means we have to remain committed. How can we remain committed? How can we remain committed? That is what we will take some few minutes to talk about this, and then we open up this section. In our quest to find out the problems of commitment in our generation, I chanced upon a certain book. And I must also emphasize here that, but by the way, how many of us have heard about this man? We were going to bring him last year, Congress. Sebastian Braston. Who has heard about him? Anybody here? Sebastian. Wow, I see. I think his blog is sebastian.org. He's a very powerful, but you know Randy Skit is coming, right? You know Randy Skit is coming for this year's Congress. They are in the same neighborhood, except that Braston is much younger than. A very powerful guy that I recommend that you listen to him. I listen to his sermons a lot, most of the times on YouTube. And some of the things I'm talking about here, he touched on some of them. A problem for this generation is that we lack many options. We like many options. We have a lot of options. We want a lot of options. We want more freedom. We want more choices. We want to be able to do anything we want to do. That is what we want to do. And so because of that, we are afraid to commit to one thing. Because if you do, we are not sure whether we will still want something else. So I'm committed to doing this particular thing. We are also thinking of the other things. And so some of us think that the more freedom we have, the more happier we will be. Yet, scientific studies have shown that the more options a person has, the less satisfied they are with the decision they make. The more options you have, the less satisfied you are with the decisions that you make. This, indeed, is a devil's strategy with pluralism. He'll give you 50, 100,000 kinds of Christianity to choose from. So you get confused. Which one should I choose? Which one should I go? The people ask so many questions. So are you saying that all these people worshiping on this day will go to hell? Are you saying that we ask so many questions because there are several options. There are several options. Those of you who have done psychology, you may have come across this, the paradox of choice. The paradox of choice. An American psychologist, Professor Barry Schwartz, I don't know how many of you have heard, he authored a book titled The Paradox of Choice. Paradox of Choice. He argues that the more freedom you have, as I said, the more freedom you have, the more difficult your life becomes, essentially, because you are never satisfied. You always want to. You're always thinking about the other one. I did this way. What if I did it that way? Couldn't have done it that way. There's always that problem. And so you will think that if you have a life that is lack of freedom, there's no freedom, you may think that life is unbearable. And so the more freedom you have, the more happier you're supposed to be. I do not want to take you far. Sometimes I watch listen to what happens in America, and I begin to ask whether they have gone out of human realm. Because sometimes the things they talk about, the things they argue, all in the name of freedom. Freedom. We can do anything you want to do. And so you see the things happening there. So choice and well-being. We have so many choices. How does that affect our well-being? How does that affect our well-being? Several studies, as I said, have shown there is something we call post-decision regret. Post-decision regret. You take this decision, after you have acted on it, you begin to regret not only on the things you have done, but you're also thinking about what you could have done. What you could have done. And that becomes a problem. Becomes a problem for you. And so, because of all of this, why should I have to commit myself to this particular thing or that particular thing? I need to be trying so many things at the same time, so that at least you cannot hold me to a particular thing, one particular thing. In economics, you know how they call this? When you take a particular decision, you lose the opportunity of the others. How do we call that in economics? Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost. So because of this, we have problems. And because we are so much overwhelmed with choices, we often ask, how can we just believe in one thing? How can we just do one thing? If we commit to this, we are restricting our freedom. And so we are freed. And I said this some time back when I was preaching at my church, Legon Church. If we come into your young men and women in the context of relationship, you find it difficult getting committed. Because if Autry Dakon, who is the president of UPSA, if he commits himself, your ladies cry, who do I know the name? Do I make an attempt to mention the name of them? Stella, eh? Lisbeth. Lisbeth is your secretary, right? Good. If he decides to get himself committed to Lisbeth, what Dr. Dakun is telling to the rest of the women in the fellowship is that I have made a choice. So I have closed my doors to all of you. But the problem you have is that you want to keep to Lisbeth, at the same time you want Stella and the rest. And so it makes it difficult for you to get committed to Lisbeth. That is the problem of our generation. That is the problem we have. We want to do this, and at the same time, we want the other ones. So if you think about it this way, then you'll be afraid to get committed. Because the question you will ask yourself is, as soon as you decide to go along with Lisbeth, then you meet Stella. Then you begin to regret, what if I had chosen Stella? Let's face it, maybe Stella is a little more spiritual than Lisbeth. Why didn't I wait? Why did I hurry into this? Are you with me? So you will know. So you hear people say things like open relationship. When it comes to Christ, there is nothing like that. When it comes to our relationship with Jesus, there is nothing like open relationship, casual relationship. What Christ wants from us is committed relationship. Because you cannot keep to Christ, commit yourself to Christ, and still be thinking about Muhammad and the rest. It doesn't work that way. And so, the things that are pioneers of GNAAS, they were able to do this because they were committed to the cause. They were not divided in terms of what they wanted to do. They were resolute. They had one thing in common. So they don't look there and elsewhere at the same time. This issue we're talking about has affected many people. And that is why you meet people, usually people who are doing well economically. You think that they would have, they should be married, both sexes, and yet they are not. It's interesting to note that if you go to our local churches, usually the villages, here you are all literate, so I can comfortably say this. Do you know that those in our churches who are not married today, especially the women, are the most educated ones? Do you know that? And do you know why? They have several options. But if you go to the seamstress, those people in our villages, for him, when you come, he thanks God, I have gotten my own. But Stella thinks that there is Daniel, there is Josiah, you understand, there is Theodore and the rest. So why do I have to be serious with you? And so you have most of us there in that category. That is the problem with having many choices. And so if you're going to be able to get committed to Christ, then we need to just have one option. Now, if you read Acts 2:18, Acts chapter 2 verse 18, Acts chapter 2 verse 18, we are just talking about how we can maintain commitment, and then we continue on. Acts chapter 2 verse 18, and I want somebody to read Acts 4:29. Acts 4:29. Another person to read Acts 16:17. We are taking these three. First, who is reading the Acts 2:18 for us? Yes.
In those days, I will pour out my spirit, even on my servants, men and women alike, and they will prophesy.
Amen. Right. The word I want you to take note of there is my servants. Right. Let's read Act 4:29.
And now, Lord, behold their threatenings, and grant unto thy servant that with all boldness they may speak thy word. Amen.
Amen. Then 16:17. Amen. This word, I am not a theologian, but I understand the Greek word for servant, the word doulos, also means slaves. Slaves. Now, we can only remain committed to Christ if we take ourselves as slaves of God. Because once we become slaves, then we have no options. Because the slave does the things the master asks him to do only. You do not have any choice. So he determines when you will sleep, when you wake up, what food you eat, what dress you put on. We can only do this if we decide and see ourselves as slaves. And the apostles saw themselves as slaves of God. And no wonder they never did anything on their own. They were able to do the things that they did, even when they were beating them. They could not, because they were slaves. They had to do their master's work. What are some of the things that prevent us? You go to most of the fellowships, it runs through. I was sad, and I must say this here. Those places some of the places that we went to with the SMS, when I was hearing stories like, oh, we are about to write IAs, so we cannot start it now. We are about to write exams, so I was sad. If you're a slave of Christ and he's sending you, what option do you have to say, because I have to do this, I'm not going to do it? When some people were skipping exams doing God's work, it's not that you're even writing exams. You are about to write exams. Not even exams, IAs. So because of that, you would wait. And it runs through most of the fellowships. You thought somebody would tell you, oh, because of the academic pressure, I'm unable to attend Sunday Bible studies. Because Monday, 7 o'clock, I have a lecture. I have to prepare before I go to lecture. Really? Many options. And so what's the simple thing you want to say here? We can only remain committed if we see ourselves as slaves of God. Remember, I'm not talking about commitment generally. Pastor TK has done that. I'm only looking at how we can maintain commitment, because we all agree that we need to be committed. But the things that take away these things are things we are highlighting on. And we have talked about the power of choice, the paradox of choice. The more choices you make, the more options you have, the more problems it becomes, because you cannot be committed. We have made a choice to follow Christ. We have decided to become slaves of God. And as slaves, we have no business of our own but the masters. And so this morning, we just want to say that God should help us to become slaves. If you don't know that we are slaves, then we should begin to realize that we are slaves of God. And it's a joy to be a slave of God. Paul was, Peter, and the rest. They were able to do it. Your pioneers, predecessors, gave themselves to God. They were able to do that which today you are seeing. And so that is the few words we would share with you. And then now we would begin the mentorship session proper. You may have time to ask a few questions. So I would want to pass the microphone now to Pastor Kusi. Those of you who don't know, he was my vice when I was the national president. And they have remained. The little things we were able to do, we are not trying to praise ourselves in any way. We couldn't do as much as we had wanted to do. But the little things we were able to do, we did them because we were not so much mindful of the grace we were going to get. And we have no regrets. But what God has done for some of us, we are grateful to Him. And given the opportunity again, we will spend the same time we spent during doing His work whilst we were in school. We have no regrets. And I encourage you, and I welcome you to do the same, because we are serving a faithful God. God will never disappoint you. Let's be faithful. Let's remain committed. Let's see ourselves as slaves. And we will always be doing our master's bidding. May the Lord be with us. Amen. So I hand over the microphone to Okay, so pardon us. You know, when you have, now we have 4. If you have 4 good hairs, it's better than 1 head, isn't it? All right. It is a 2 hairs. You don't just say 2 hairs. Because 2 bad hairs can never be better than 1 good head. Right. So this section said we would want to find out. Yesterday, when we did the SWOT analysis, You said so many things during the weaknesses, the problems, the challenges. Most of you said so many things. We want to share some of our experiences. Because if, for instance, you talk about University of Ghana, somebody said you have Sabbath exams issue. In our time, that is when it had started. We had gone to court and all of that. 2005, 2006, thereabout. That's where the problem really was. But people went through it. We had issues with places of worship. People went through with it. Some of the fellowships did not have chaplains. Today, you are even fortunate to have chaplains. When I was the Legon Fellowship president, we never had a chaplain. And yet, by the grace of God, we were able to establish churches. So, but the point I'm trying to make here is that what you are experiencing now is not different from what used to be the case. Are you with me? So there's nothing so special about what is happening. And the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. But so the section here is to try to help ourselves. How were we able to cope? How were we able to cope? So that you too, you can cope. We also now hear some of the challenges. And unfortunately, not many of the chaplains are around here. The frictions that we have with some of the chaplains now. Some of the presidents, some of you act as if you're executive presidents. And so you are the president, and that is it. It happens in some of the institutions. How were we able to liaise with our chaplains, work so cordially? How were we able to do that? They will share with us. Money has always been an issue. How were we able to get money to run the things that you were doing? How did we combine studies with doing God's work? That is what we are going to do at this section. And so I'll be throwing the questions to them. If you have something, you can put it down. Alright, at the time you became fellowship president of University of Ghana, I must say that I handed over to him. Right? You were a master's student. You were faced with writing thesis. At the same time, too, you were a graduate assistant. In fact, you were even living off campus. How were you able to do all these things and still had a very formidable fellowship at the time?
Good afternoon. Yes, I want to share my experience with you with respect to mentorship. But I would rather broaden it before coming to the specific question that Brother Frank just asked me. And, you know, when you're looking at mentorship, you're looking at one-on-one relationship. Okay, it could be between an adult and adolescent. It could be between two adolescents or two adults. And what we are interested in is passing on of specific skills, knowledge from one person to the other. And so, having defined it this way, I must say that I have had enough from mentorship because I wasn't the person that actually had the care of parents, daddy, mommy, like that. No, I didn't have that. At the age of 3, I was taken away from my mom and I saw her only after 21. So it's just people that mentored me. But the best of this mentor that I had, perhaps, was from Brother Joseph Amwakwata. He was a church member. I joined the Adventist church around the age of 15 in JSS. And so, and then I'm the same person, the only person in my family, both father and mother, that is an Adventist. So, Brother Amwakwata took me as a mentee or protege and then mentored me in the church. What to eat, what not to eat. I didn't get these things from just a baptismal class, but rather he taught me. He taught me about Ellen White and Ellen White books, prophecy and all that. So as I stand here, I owe a great deal to Brother Mwakwata, and that is church-based mentorship. Not Brother Mwakwata alone, but another elder. May he so rest in peace. Yes, he also taught me a lot. And so mentorship could be church-based, it could be school-based, and community-based. And so that is what I had from the church base. What about the community? I have stayed with many people. And then I will mention one, Mr. Alex in Kansa. He took me earlier as a young boy. He saw some talent in me and also saw an advantage because he saw that I could also help his case. And so he tutored me and then also brought his case or his children for me to, mentor. And so he took me to his house, provided me with accommodation, and then placed 2 of his, children at my care. And I also mentored them. So that is an experience, I had from there. When I came to University of Ghana, I should say that I saw something. Some students come and it's like they are somehow average. Okay, so if you don't provide them with assistance, their concentration will be greatly on academics. And therefore, they wouldn't pay attention to, church activities. And so I happen to be a colleague mentor to my colleagues, especially those offering philosophy and political science. And I must say there is a lady now who still calls me that she had wanted to at least climb the academic ladder with me. So she was recently, accusing me for not actually advising her to start the master's with me because I could be there to help her. So that is how many guys that really passed through philosophy and political science I mentored. Okay, and that gave me an experience. Personal relationship between male and female. That was how I learned it. When I was poly, the same thing, I benefited from that. But there is something that also gave me a different experience. At MPhil level, I went to 2 professors. And one of them, I said, Prof, I want you to mentor me. Then he said, oh, for me, I'm not into this. What is kind of mentorship? I mean, just join the system, have your way. I mean, do what you can do and then go away. I can't do that. Maybe talk to another person. Then I went to another, another person I highly regarded. And I said, please, I want you to mentor me in this area so that when you are not there, I can replace you because I knew he was old and then could easily become a student at the university. But he told me, well, these things are not done here. I mean, elsewhere, it is done. But in Ghana, in this university, I haven't seen this mentorship thing going on. So maybe you can try, elsewhere. You see? So what I want to say is that it depends on what you are looking for. Okay? And so mentorship relationship is always based on certain goals set by either the mentee or the mentor. In my case, when I went to them because of academic, goal that I had set. I had wanted to be a lecturer and I thought that, okay, they could mentor me about which area to go and all that so that I could also climb the ladder just like they had. But I was declined because they didn't understand the importance of mentorship. But because of my background, I understood it. So I thought that they could, but they didn't. In the same way, I have come to know that if we have mentorship programs structured in our fellowships, okay, or in the public, campus ministry, it will help us. Because we will get the fresh students, attention. Okay, we will be able to help them with their fears. We will be able to help them with the things they do not understand. And perhaps, certain relationships they wouldn't enter into. Okay, let me say this before I go to the question Brother Frank asked me. Yes, okay. One day we were just praying on the Sabbath Park. A lady walked to me and said, I want you to pray for me. I was just studying at the BAM library and then I heard the voice that I should come, that you pray for me because I was directed that you were praying here, so I should come and then you pray for me. So we prayed, and after that I had to interact with her. And she told me the problem was that, she wasn't having freedom at home. And so she came and saw the freedom in University of Ghana so huge. And therefore, she couldn't manage it. And she had, as the time she was speaking to me, she had had about the 4th abortion. And that had caused her womb to be removed. How did that happen? Yeah, I mean, this situation could have been perhaps prevented if she had had a mentor, okay, who, teach her, guide her in the process. So many of our colleagues, they come to campus and it's like they know next to nothing. I mean, they come to see this enormous freedom as something that they find very difficult to manage. But we can be of help to them. So what I'm saying is that it's about time we incorporate mentorship, okay, in the fellowship programs. It will help us. It will help us greatly. But actually, it was not easier for me staying outside the campus, at the same time a TA, and I was also working, out somewhere at Asante Achim. I was the youth employment, accountant. At the same time, TA here, fellowship president, and then staying outside the campus. And then where I was staying with my uncle, so I had to do house chores and all that. But what I did was that I really, perhaps my leadership style was that kind of maybe personhood, or maybe I should say, for me, I was people-oriented. Okay, I rally around me, my vices, and all the other leaders. And so where I wasn't around, they were there to help me. But the most important thing, communication was very crucial. Okay, you communicate, you let them know what you are doing, you let them know what is happening to you, and then you provide guidance when you can. And then the others will do the work for you. So maybe another question will come and then I can say some other things. Thank you.
Okay, you want to clap for him? Thank you. This session is very important, as has been, you have been informed. Mentoring session. And we want to brainstorm or discuss what mentorship is about, the state or the condition of mentorship on our various campuses. What is the state of it? Okay? The opportunities of mentorship and how we can establish proper mentorship schemes and structures for proper nurturing of our students, and also to share our practical experiences, life experiences with you to encourage you. Now, I want you to open your Bibles to, I want to say that mentorship is recognized in the Bible. Okay, mentorship is recognized in the Bible. The famous text that we know of, 1 Corinthians 11, when Paul said, "Be ye followers of me, even as I also am" what? A follower of Christ. Now, the key point or the key word here is follow. Following. That is what basically mentorship is. And we know how Jesus even invited the disciples to work with him. He just said, "Follow me. Follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." Now, if you continue down there, the verse 2, Paul says, "Now I praise you, brethren, that you remember me in all things, and keep the ordinances as I delivered to what? To you." Keep the ordinances as I. So what it means is that Paul has received something from a higher authority, right? And he's passing what he has received to the next generation or to his followers. So Paul is a mentor and passing on something to his followers. The question is, how are we getting proper mentorship when we go to campus? In our various fellowships, do we get proper mentorship? And how are we preparing ourselves to also serve as what? Mentors to those who are coming to level hundreds and following us. So this is something that we want GNAAS leaders. You are here as leaders. As you go in, don't lose sight of mentorship. The fellowship should consciously provide opportunities for what? For mentorship. The bottom line, when you want to look at mentorship, the bottom line is a successful mentorship is to help break down barriers okay, and create opportunities for success. That is what successful mentorship is about. To help break down barriers, because there is always difficulty in catching up with the adult generation. Is that not so? Something has to be consciously done to break down barriers. And you and I know that, you see, life is all about relationship. I hope you know that. Life, the success of life is dependent on what? Relationship. Either horizontal or what? Vertical. Horizontal relationship, that is among your colleagues, people that you are at the same level with. And vertical relationship, those who are higher than you. Very important. How you are able to create and nurture that relationship is what brings up success. Now, I just want to talk about my personal experience briefly. The number one person who have had a great impact in my life that I will describe him as a mentor is my uncle. His name is James Kusi, an elder of a church. I stayed with my uncle. I never stayed with my father. I stayed with my uncle, and when you are fortunate to get parents, your parents are your earliest mentors. I hope you know that. Your parents are your earliest mentors. Sometimes you don't get parents. Sometimes you are raised by a single parent. Sometimes you don't even have parents to stay with at all. I stayed with my uncle a lot. And I learned two things about him. My uncle had higher interest in things of God, in spiritual things, in godly things. He doesn't joke with his Bible studies and prayers. He had a very higher interest in that. And I learned that from him. My uncle was also a successful businessman. He was a successful businessman. He was not poor. He was rich. One of the great guys. When you go to Bantama SDA Church, you ask of James Kusi, alias Jacques Man. You know, he was a rich man. He was a successful businessman. Now, what I learned from my uncle is that he didn't like much sleep. Okay? So he wakes up at dawn, studies, pray, and then that is when he thinks about his business after all of that. So he always used to tell us that if you have too much sleep, you will struggle. So that is the secret of his success lies on what he did behind the scenes. Behind the scenes. He was diligent and hardworking, and he tried to impart those virtues. I remember some time ago, he had a problem with electricity, light issues, and our house was disconnected. His house was disconnected. I was staying with him for about 8 months. The light was not restored. And you know what? He had a lantern that he places at his bed, on top of his bed. And that is what he used to study. When you go to his bedroom, you see books piled up. Books. He had all the SDA Bible commentaries. And all the big Spirit of Prophecy books that you can imagine. He had all of them piled up on top of his bed. And he made sure that every night he would wake up. He would wake up. He was a very studious person and prayerful. So I learned that a lot from him about how, with the proper guidance, you can be a godly person, okay? You can be a highly godly person and at the same time be successful in your career and in your profession and in any endeavor that you have. So that is what helped me a lot and guided me, as my brother Frank talked about. Legon, we did a lot of things, but we still graduated with good classes. Amen? We still graduated with good classes because of that balance. You have to learn how to balance that. So Thank you so much. That's a bit of my personal life.
Thank you. Yes, Daniel, I'll refer to you as a Latter-day Saint in terms of when you handed over. It's immediate past, that's present. I'm sure you know that. All right. There's one thing that I personally observed during your tenure as the president of GNAAS. You were able to bring together most of the, even old past GNAAS leaders. And it had an effect on what you did, and even at Congress. How were you able to do that? How were you able to do that, and what advice would you give to those who have taken over from you? Some of them, you go there, the things that they do are so different from what used to be. How did you do that?
Thank you, Mr. Frank Kebwachi. I would say that when we were nominated as national executives, what we started with was to go through the Constitution, to know what GNAAS is about, our structures, what we seek to achieve. And the key objective I saw in the Constitution was to prepare souls for the imminent returning of Christ. Now the question was, how do we do this? Honestly, when we came, most of us were new. Some of us have never been fellowship executive before. Some have never taken any leadership position in the fellowship, though some assisted some departments. So the question is, with our background, how do we achieve this objective? How do we make an impact? I visited the past minute. I remember I saw some letters. Pastor Ansendu wrote some letters to GNAAS at Congress. I saw a lot of it, and I realized that the last 5 years, the agenda has followed a certain pattern. So the issue is, what do we do as new executive? And fortunately for me, when I came to level 100 in 2009, I met Frank. He was the national president. Ura was the fellowship president. Mr. Kusi was the national vice president. So I had that track. I could trace from 2009 till 2014. So I knew all the national executive at that time. So I went back. The first thing I did was I went to Legon Church. I got the opportunity to meet Mr. Frank Kebwachi. He also introduced me to other past national executives. We had a chat. So after that chat, I had the indication of what national executives are supposed to do. What we are supposed to do is a bit different from what fellowship executives are supposed to do. So that's where I started from. So from there, I took some contact from him. I got to know Mr. Franklin Kakari through Frank. I went to see him. He also gave me some contacts. I went to the GNAAS website. I saw that GNAAS started with Elder Ofinjima, the past CEO of Confanoche, Lawyer Mele, and all those you can think of. So then what do we do? If they are the people who started GNAAS, what do I get from them? I went to see them on why GNAAS. They gave me the history of GNAAS. They saw why they formed the National Association. Through that, I had to come and see Dr. I.B. Boatin. And through that, I was building contact. I was getting people who could help me, all the aspects that I would need. We didn't care much about finances because that wasn't an issue. Because I got to know a lot of influential people who could help us if only we have a good proposal. So then I made a lot of inquiries. Through that, I got to meet Dr. Pipim. So myself and my executive, we planned a meeting with Dr. Pipim because we wanted to know how GNAAS has succeeded over the years. And thankfully, he gave us some of his time. He came to meet us on University of Ghana campus. And Pastor TK also came. So he gave us a new direction. He told us what GNAAS was supposed to be doing. It looks like they had studied over the years and GNAAS had deviated a bit from what they were supposed to do. Instead of the campus ministry, we were focusing on outside evangelism. Instead of building entrepreneurs, we were not doing all those kind of things. So I got to know a lot of stuff from Dr. Pipim, and he also introduced me to a lot of people outside. And I think it was a nice experience getting to know all those people. So if you could remember, the intertertiary was, the decision to make it a homecoming was influenced by those meetings we had. Because we thought that over the years we missed the link between the students and the alumni. And you see that GNAAS can grow if the alumni will support. Most of us are not working, and we don't have the needed funds to run our evangelism activities. So those are the reasons why we organized that program. We got a lot of advice from our past executive as to how to go about it. And thankfully, I think it was one of the programs that was successful. And aside that one, I got to know a lot of people who were also interested in evangelism. GNAAS is into evangelism. If this is what you want to do, then how do you do it? Who are you supposed to consult? Who are the people who can help? So I think that's one thing that I would like to pass on to my fellow executive, that whenever you come into office, just know what you want to do and know who to consult. I've realized that through my experience, one year experience as a national executive, through the number of meetings I had with some fellowship executive, I realized that some fellowships don't really have any objective. They exist as students who have come from their homes and they are residing on campus, worshiping, fellowshipping together. They don't really have any motive to draw others to their worship. So you see that their style of worship is what they are comfortable with, mostly what they've realized from their home. So you see that there's nothing exciting about these fellowships. And I would say that you can't attract someone if you yourself, you don't really know what you are doing. Because I remember we had a campaign on campus. One of my mates got converted. She got baptized, but she wasn't coming. When I approached her, I saw her chatting with someone that we want to convert her into Seventh-day Adventist. She doesn't know why she should join our church. And I think probably she didn't get the best orientation from some of us. So I think that's one thing that we should look out for. Some fellowships are into evangelism, which I would say is good. Some are into music. And the issue is, how do you use that music to reach your objective? We want to prepare souls for the imminent returning of Christ. How do you use music to reach that objective? And if you are into evangelism, who do you evangelize to? So those are the kind of things that you should think of. And then to consult the right people. I would say that I was fortunate. I was able to consult some people, and through that, we were successful in all that we wanted to do. And I think it's a good approach to know your direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. You see, what we're doing is trying to learn a bit from the past. The fellowship chaplain of Legon is here. Pastor, permit me to embarrass you a bit. I mean, your fellowship. Okay, I'm going to say something that is related to Legon Fellowship. And forgive me, my biases are always towards Legon Fellowship because that's where I have my umbilical cord. Now, you see, he was talking about some fellowship. Legon Fellowship establishes something we call House of Joy. It was a biannual program. If you ask those who started it, somewhere in the year 1999-2000, at that Godwin and Sons group, the idea was to use it as a tool to bring people to church, to see how, to use it as a means so that they will come to, you use that to be able to get them, evangelize to them eventually. So they organize a program on campus, invite people free of charge to come so that they build that rapport. You know, SDA people sing well. That was it. So after that program, then they will follow it up with an evangelistic campaign where they will get the people who came to listen to the songs to come. Was it like about some few years back, we heard that House of Joy is being taken to National Theatre and they are selling tickets. And the people who went there are entirely different from those in their community. I was there some. you understand? The purpose is entirely different. This year, Daniel, I think you told me that they are going to wear Christ the King. Focus is entirely different. Are you with me? I can pardon the fellowship chaplain because he, by the time he even came, they had started this arrangement already. Well, maybe. You see, so the purpose, there's the need for you to find out how did you do this. We did House of Joy as Central Cafeteria. Was well attended, full. The place was full to capacity. We had even ministers of state at the time attending. The current chief of staff, the just chief of staff, Honorable Frema Opare, was then the MP and the minister for employment. I personally went to invite her and she came with another deputy minister of trade and industry at the time, right there on University of Ghana campus. You understand? So let's just try to understand the philosophy of those things that your predecessors established. Otherwise, you'll be doing something entirely different. The focus is different. You end up spending a lot of money. What is it? You leave your immediate environment, go to Christ the King, and do what at Christ the King? I'm sorry, I may be a bit harsh, but I know Pastor Long will forgive me. He's my brother. You understand? So these are things we are talking about. We are just about finishing. So I'll give you 1 minute each. You share with us, again, your experience with mentorship generally, and then we would pray and leave. And Ababi will be coming after us. We're going to go into in-depth Bible study. So let's get ourselves prepared. We will leave here very soon.
Yes, right. My first year in Legon Fellowship, I found myself as a member of the personal ministry. Okay, so I was mentored by Eric Benyo, and so when I got to level 300, I took over from him as the personal ministry leader. And I should say that the encounter with Eric Benyo, I learned a lot. And I think that you have to humble yourself to learn before you can acquire certain skills. And I think mentorship is about, it's like measles. You need to contract. So if you want to get certain skills, you need to humble yourself to the person who has it so that you pass it on to you. So Eric Benyo passed on to me the qualities of being a good personal ministry leader. And it was our time we went to court. And then the experience I got is that for the first time, I had to undergo fasting, 3 days fasting as an ulcer patient. Because you can't ask your students to do fasting while you are not partaking. And then doing that, I got my healing after that fasting. And what do you say? What do you say to God? Yeah. And then also,
this is a commercial break. Those of you in SF19, You are needed outside. It's very urgent. SF19. Thank you. Please go out if you are in SF19. Yeah, they know. If you are in SF19, you should know. Right. So they know themselves.
So I really learned from the leaders I met. Elder Dom, now at Legon Church, helped me a lot. I learned his humility. And then I don't know what Frank heard about me. He came looking for me from Commonwealth, that we wanted you to be the fellowship president or whatever. But he might have heard something anyway. And I must say that I had to pray. I went to Accra by night, registry. And I had to pray a lot, battling whether to accept or not to accept. And finally, I did accept. And I should say that the people that were with me, now we still have a very good relationship. Sylvester, he always says that you helped me. I don't know what I did. But the question is that sometimes you need to pass on certain qualities. Okay? And I think we need also to humble ourselves to our leaders so that what they know, they can pass it on to us. And I think every fellowship president, has a responsibility, not only to those who are your vices and other colleagues, executives, but students in general. Know those who need certain assistance and offer it to them. It could be spiritual, it could be physical, but whatever the need may be, mentorship can be very helpful. Thank you.
Well, I will use my my final term for advocacy. My mentorship experience on campus, I would say, is not something that I was proud of, and not something that is strong. That is why I am playing this advocacy. Let us, as you are going back, try to work on it. Let's identify various opportunities to establish mentorship schemes. One of the ways you can go about it is that when you go to your fellowships, group the fellowships into programs. You can divide the fellowships, the members, into programs of study. And for each program, you can have a leader. Okay? So every person, every student who comes in level 100, or you group the students according to their programs of study, and they have a leader. You see, sometimes some of our members have academic challenges. And at the same time, we want them to involve themselves in fellowship activities. You are intelligent, but not all have the same level of what? Intelligence like you. Now, we have to create that system to support what? The weak. Not only the weak spiritually, but the weak academically, the weak financially, the weak emotionally, and all of that. So I want to plead with you, as executives, as you are going back, divide the fellowships into groups according to the department. Let them have leaders. They can meet regularly to discuss issues pertaining to their what? To their department. If someone has a challenge, a level 200 student, he doesn't even know how to go about his thesis, his project work. Who does he consult? You understand? And it's becoming a headache for that person and all of that. At the same time, we want him or her to involve himself in activity. So please take that up for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. There's one question that I asked Dr. Pipim. I asked him, Doc, how do you train speakers from GNAAS? And his answer was, the best way to learn how to be a good speaker is to start speaking. That is, taking speaking appointment. So if you want to be like any of our pastors, our speakers, the best way to start is to speak. And one thing that I realized from our fellowships is that most of us complain a lot. And most of our complaints are towards finance. Money is not a problem to God. Most of us have succeeded in helping other fellowships. Yes, you were able to help them because God put us there to help others. So that's a success story. It's not an opportunity for you to complain. But what you need to do is to what? Have a direction. And then talk to the right people and the help will come. But the best way to start everything, the best way to achieve your goal is to what? Start doing something. One thing that I would say is whenever you pray about something, you have to leave those prayers. If you are praying to God to give you money, then you have to leave that prayer by finding a job or doing something that will give you money, and God will bless you. If you are praying that GNAAS doubles its membership, then what you need to do is to take campus evangelism seriously, because something that God has empowered us to do, He will never do it for us. But whenever we start doing it, He will give us the grace and you will do it. So let's always know that the work we are doing is not our work, it's God's work. But the fact that we've taken the responsibility to do that work, we have to put all we have into that work and we will be successful. Let's minimize our excuses, let's minimize our complaints, and God will bless us. Amen.
Thank you. Maybe I'll give the opportunity to one or two people at most. If you have something you want to ask, then we finish this. Just one or two. If you want to ask something about mentorship, it's just one or two people. I'm counting. We are not going beyond that. First come, first serve. Otherwise, we will wrap up and then we will start the next section. All right. So the time, we thank God that the last comment I'll make, then we'll pray and leave. I will still want to emphasize on the need to consult. There are resources available. I mean, there are a lot of people around. You can only get to know them if you keep asking questions. If you keep asking questions, ask, you always will get. Sometimes you may not have a person directly say, this person is mentoring me, but you can learn experience from so many people. When you come across them, you can learn from them without them even knowing that you are learning from them. I remember way back 2008 or 2008, when we were going to do evangelism somewhere, we were looking for a speaker, somebody who could help us. People were looking at, who kept disappointing us. Then was this brother, a friend of mine, one Cephas. I don't know where he is now. Pastor Tike, do you know where he is? Brother Cephas. He's in Hohoi now. Okay. He was the one who first mentioned Pastor Tike's name to me. That was 2008 or so. And it's been a blessing. Okay? So how did I get to know him? You need to ask questions, consult. It helps. So let us all do that. You cannot do it all, always. Make sure that what you cannot do, somebody can do and do it better. So let's try to do all these things. And I know that God will give us the people that we need to work with so that we can do the very work we have been asked to do.